Test, test. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? No? Okay. Can you pull up the Okay, I just went live, so okay, test, test, test. Test. Alright, should be Alright. Okay. Welcome back to Fastlane Friday. Good morning, everyone. I'm your host, Sean Urban, here with the latest news and drama of the NASCAR world. Apologies for the little bit of delayed start. There's no audio issues, but the speakers are out in the production room, so it is hard to tell on my other end for my production manager, or actually studio manager, if the speakers are working. So apologies for that. But anyways, here's the latest bulletin for last weekend. From a comeback victory overcoming a speeding penalty, Kyle Busch officially takes his first win for RCR at the third time of asking, the first and second times coming for obviously the Clash and the Daytona 500. And a lot of really good showings this weekend. Once again, Auto Club at the final 2 mile race before its reconfiguration into a half-mile high bank short track. We saw a lot of guys sitting at the top of the charts for the day. We had AJ Allmendinger in fifth place leading, and I mentioned in my last week, I mentioned last semester when this was the Left Lane podcast that I didn't expect Priest to light the world on fire at Stewart House, but this week he had a pretty decent showing. I know he was in contention to win the Daytona 500 around 2 weeks ago, but to me, the Daytona 500 does not really show a lot of like what the rest of the season could look like. For me, the second race of the season is where things really get tough for the drivers. Daytona 500 is, or well, most pretty much all restrictor plate races now are even field. The draft is the ultimate equalizer, but here the talent equipment is going to show at these cookie cutter tracks and short tracks and other tracks such as road courses where there's road course aces like Chase Elliott and a lot of the time Kyle Larson. But to me, there were a lot of decent showings this weekend. I think the precursor for this year is that you're going to see with the betterment of equipment and a lot of decent showings, especially to me, one that really caught my eye was Ricky Stenhouse Jr. staying or finishing in the top 15. I would have thought he would have fallen back following his victory at Daytona, but so far he's managed to get that showing, and he's telling people now, I'm not the meme that you think I am. I'm a real gold baby. But yeah, a lot of decent showings from guys, and the one outlier from this factor that I could say is Kyle Busch. Going into RCR, I and a lot of people myself thought that this move was crazy. This was insane. This could possibly end his career and break his winless streak. But not break his winless streak, but break the streak of seasons that he had where he's won at least a single race. But once again this year, he has proven his talent in multiple different equipment, whether it would be Hendrick or Joe Gibbs or even now RCR. He's always a threat and gets the most out of his car. The one outlying factor that I've seen at least, and many people have seen since Kyle Busch came to RCR, is that he has always been a threat at every track so far, whether it would be going for the win against Truex at the Coliseum or leading in the final laps of the Daytona 500, only to get knocked out of contention by Daniel Suarez spinning, and eventually Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and Joey Logano fighting for the win going into turns 1 and 2 on the backstretch, and then eventually the rest would be history. Cautions out, Stenhouse would win after a timing issue and deciding who was ahead at the time the caution button was pressed. But if you put Kyle Busch into an RCR car, he's showing that he's hungry. This is his big comeback season since the issues that came with Gibbs, whether it would be reliability or sponsorship or the money issue, which was what really drove Kyle away from Joe Gibbs Racing. He's showing people now that that was not the same me last year. That was weak, that was unfocused, that was, well, that was conflicted. And now that he has his mind on RCR and his team, I think he's going to be a huge threat for the championship. And speaking of threats for the championship, once again, Ross Chastain is picking up where he left off. Last year, he finished third this season, and and Daniel Suarez, his teammate, would finish sixth. And I thought at first that this was going to be a one-off team, that they would have these huge streak of wins and top fives and huge consistency, and then they would just fall off from there. But showing now, I think Trackhouse is for at least 10 years is here to stay as a competitive team, and that they're going to once again be a threat on Sunday. And another comeback. Speaking of comebacks, Chase Elliott would wheel his way back from 33rd to second, chasing down Kyle Busch in the final laps, gaining time on him, but just couldn't get there. And it was a wacky weekend in itself as well, since shockingly, it snowed in California. There's been a lot of wacky weather up here in the Northeast too. We just had a huge snowstorm. We had sludge and ice everywhere. I think that's the first snowstorm that I've at least been here at school since the first at school snowstorm I've been at since 2021, where we had that big blizzard at the start of February. And now we had a little medium blizzard at the end of February. But off away from the weather, NASCAR, I finally got some juicy drama for the first time in a couple weeks. So NASCAR announced that Tuesday that they would be introducing a new rules package at all short tracks except for Dover and Bristol, and all road courses this season. So that would include all short miles, including Nashville and New Hampshire and Phoenix. This package will as well debut at Phoenix. It is a 2-inch spoiler on the car. They will remove the 3 middle strakes on the diffuser. I can't make a visual picture for everyone right now, or I can't demonstrate it on my little drawing board because, well, I haven't seen the car yet. But as soon as I get pictures from Phoenix on what these cars are going to look like, I promise I'll draw them out for you and show you some pictures. And the front strakes on the car will be removed during testing. When they tested this at Phoenix in preseason, NASCAR had estimated that about 30% of the downforce would be lost, and that these downforce levels will be the equivalent of the 1990s. And when I saw that the equivalent of 1990s, I thought Dale Earnhardt, Terry Labonte at Bristol, even though it's not going to be at Bristol. I'm thinking like they're keeping it the spirit of the rules, where it's more or less regarding the spirit of the rules is that they want a car that's more difficult to drive and wheel and more competition. So I think with this with more struggle and less dirty air due to the even more lack of downforce that's going to be on this car. I think I don't think we're going to get Days of Thunder NASCAR 1990s moments, but I do think that hopefully nothing is set in stone for this package, but hopefully we see at Phoenix that this new rules package lives up to its name and lives up to its hype. And it was, and the last point I was going to make in terms of drama is that Busch Anheuser-Busch has recently announced that they will not be sponsoring Kevin Harvick, and according to Bob Pockrass and Jeff Gluck, the favorites who take over the sponsorship is Team Trackhouse Racing with Ross Chastain, and it's going to be really interesting to see how who they're gonna pick at the end of this season. But I'm pretty certain it's Trackhouse. Since they came on with a lot of sponsorships, they had Coca-Cola and they had iFly the first season, but now you just have all these sponsors with Ross Chastain. You have I forgot a lot, but you have but the ones oh yeah, you have GoPro, you have Princess Cruises. There's a lot more sponsorships. I can't name some off the top of my head, but the ones that with the paint schemes, the one that really caught my eye were GoPro and Princess Cruises. So yeah, as far as I'm concerned, we'll be hitting the Vegas Strip this weekend over by Vegas Strip this weekend. And there was a little truck parade on the strip last night, and they head out over by Nellis Air Force Base, which is where the track is adjacent to, and we're gonna get some racing at Las Vegas. And I think with the racing we had last year, and in the fall when Logano and Chastain were battling for the championships four spot, I think that we're gonna get another banger this week. So we might have three bangers in a row, and I say bangers in terms of the racing product. So yeah, I just hope that once again we're gonna have another good race. And yeah, that concludes this podcast. So once again, I'm still on the hunt for a co-host. So if you know anyone that's interested in the sport and would like to talk every Friday morning with me about NASCAR, same info, just reach out to me if you need info. Once again, surban2 at gales.iono.edu. I've also reached out to a couple of people in radio to see if they're interested, and I'm waiting for feedback on them. So, yeah, I'll keep you guys posted on that. Thank you all for tuning in. And until next time, take care and have a good one.